The neon lights of Las Vegas cast their usual glow across the desert landscape as Jake and Michelle Thompson prepared for what they thought would be a romantic getaway to celebrate their 5th wedding anniversary. What started as a dream vacation would turn into a nightmare that would baffle investigators and leave their families searching for answers in America's most notorious city. If you think Las Vegas is just about gambling and shows, you're about to discover a darker side that, tourists never see. Jake Thompson, 32, was a successful software engineer from Denver, Colorado, who had built a comfortable life for himself and his wife through careful planning and hard work. He stood 6 feet tall with brown hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, the type of man who calculated risks carefully and never made impulsive decisions. His colleagues at Tech Vision Industries knew him as someone who always delivered projects on time and never missed important deadlines. Jake had spent months planning their Las Vegas trip, researching hotels, booking shows, and making dinner reservations at the city's finest restaurants. Michelle Thompson, 29, worked as a marketing coordinator for a local nonprofit organization in Denver. She was petite with long blonde hair and an infectious smile that could light up any room. Her friends described her as someone who found joy in small moments and had an adventurous spirit that perfectly complemented Jake's cautious nature. Michelle had been looking forward to the Las Vegas trip for months, excited about the shows, the shopping, and the chance to spend uninterrupted time with her husband, away from their busy careers. Their marriage had weathered some storms over the past year. Jake's demanding work schedule had put strain on their relationship, and Michelle's desire to start a family had become a source of gentle tension between them. The Las Vegas trip was meant to be a fresh start, a chance to reconnect and remember why they'd fallen in love in the first place. They'd booked a suite at the Bellagio, splurged on tickets to Cirque du Soleil, and made reservations at restaurants they'd only dreamed of visiting. The couple left Denver on Thursday morning, April 15th, flying Southwest Airlines Flight 1247 to McCarran International Airport. According to flight records, they were seated in 12A and 12B, and the flight attendant later remembered them as a happy couple who held hands during takeoff and seemed excited about their destination. They had packed light for the 4-day trip, bringing only carry-on luggage and a small backpack that contained their camera, phone chargers, and travel documents. Upon arrival in Las Vegas at 2:30 p.m. local time, Jake and Michelle took a taxi to the Bellagio Hotel, where they checked into their suite on the 28th floor. The bellhop who assisted them, Miguel Santos, later told investigators that the couple seemed relaxed and happy, with Michelle taking photos of the fountain view from their window, while Jake tipped generously and asked about recommendations for romantic restaurants. They appeared to be a typical tourist couple, excited about their vacation and eager to explore the city. Their first evening in Las Vegas followed the itinerary Jake had carefully planned. They had dinner at Le Cirque, where the maitre d' remembered seating them at a window table overlooking the fountains. Michelle had ordered the sea bass while Jake chose the filet mignon, and they'd shared a bottle of champagne to celebrate their anniversary. Other diners later described them as a couple clearly in love, with Michelle laughing at Jake's jokes and Jake taking photos of her with his phone throughout the meal. After dinner, they'd walked through the casino floor, with Michelle trying her luck at a few slot machines, while Jake watched and offered encouragement. Security footage from the casino showed them moving through the gaming area at 10:47 p.m., with Michelle winning a small jackpot of $127 on a penny slot machine. The footage captured their celebration, with Jake lifting Michelle off her feet and spinning her around while she held the voucher from her winnings. They appeared completely normal, showing no signs of distress or conflict. Friday morning brought the first day of their planned activities. They had breakfast at the hotel's buffet, where staff members remembered them as a polite couple who thanked their server multiple times and left a generous tip. Jake had loaded his plate with pancakes and bacon while Michelle chose fruit and yogurt, and they'd sat by the window discussing their plans for the day. Their conversation was animated and positive, with Michelle showing Jake brochures for shows they might see, and Jake pointing out attractions on a map of the Strip. The couple spent Friday afternoon shopping at the Forum Shops at Caesar's Palace, where credit card records show they made several purchases. Jake bought Michelle a pair of diamond earrings from Tiffany & Co., spending $2,400 on a gift he'd apparently been planning for months. Michelle purchased a silk scarf from Hermes and a new dress from Nordstrom, telling the sales associate that she wanted to look special for their anniversary dinner that evening. Security cameras throughout the shopping center captured them holding hands, laughing, and behaving like any other tourist couple enjoying their vacation. That evening, they attended the Cirque du Soleil show O at the Bellagio, sitting in premium seats that Jake had booked months in advance. The usher who seated them remembered Michelle's excitement about the performance and Jake's obvious pleasure in watching his wife enjoy herself. During intermission, they were seen at the bar sharing a cocktail and discussing the incredible acrobatics they'd witnessed. Other audience members sitting nearby described them as a couple who seemed deeply connected, with Jake whispering comments about the performance in Michelle's ear and Michelle responding with delighted laughter. After the show, they returned to their hotel suite, where hotel records show they ordered room service at 11:23 p.m. The server who delivered their order, Carlos Rodriguez, later told investigators that the couple answered the door together, with Michelle wearing a hotel robe and Jake in casual clothes. They seemed relaxed and happy, with Michelle commenting on how incredible the show had been and Jake adding a generous tip to the bill. The couple appeared to be settling in for a quiet evening in their room, with no indication of any problems or concerns. Saturday morning marked the beginning of what would become a mystery that would baffle investigators for months. The couple failed to appear for their 10 a.m. spa appointment, which Michelle had booked weeks in advance and had been looking forward to throughout their trip. When the spa called their room at 10:15 a.m., there was no answer. Hotel security was asked to perform a wellness check, but when they knocked on the door of room 2847, they received no response from inside. The hotel's assistant manager, Patricia Williams, decided to enter the room at 11:30 a.m. using a master key. What she found inside would launch one of the most puzzling missing person cases in Las Vegas history. The room showed no signs of struggle or forced entry, but there were clear indications that the couple had left suddenly and unexpectedly. The bed was unmade, with Michelle's new dress laid out on top of it, as if she'd been preparing to wear it. Jake's laptop was open on the desk, still logged into his email account, with the screen showing he'd been researching restaurants for their remaining days in Las Vegas. Most puzzling of all were the personal items left behind. Both of their cell phones were on the nightstand, plugged into chargers and showing no signs of distress calls or unusual activity. Michelle's purse was on the dresser, containing her wallet, credit cards, and identification, while Jake's wallet was on the bathroom counter next to his watch and wedding ring. The couple had apparently left their room without taking any of their essential belongings, something that made no sense given their careful planning and responsible nature. The hotel's security footage provided some clues but raised even more questions. The cameras showed Jake and Michelle leaving their room at 3:17 a.m. on Saturday morning, moving quickly down the hallway toward the elevator. They were both fully dressed, with Jake wearing jeans and a t-shirt and Michelle in casual clothes, but neither was carrying any luggage or personal items. Most strangely, they appeared to be following someone who was just out of camera range, as if they were being led or directed by a third party. The elevator security camera captured them entering on the 28th floor, but the footage showed something that immediately caught investigators' attention. Both Jake and Michelle appeared tense and frightened, a stark contrast to the happy couple who had been captured on camera throughout their first 2 days in Las Vegas. Michelle was holding Jake's hand tightly, and Jake kept looking over his shoulder as if he expected someone to follow them. Neither spoke during the elevator ride, and both seemed to be breathing heavily as if they'd been running or were extremely anxious. The lobby security footage showed the couple exiting the elevator at 3:19 a.m. and walking quickly toward the main entrance. They were moving with purpose, as if they knew exactly where they were going, but their body language suggested they were under duress. Jake's arm was around Michelle's shoulders, and she appeared to be leaning into him for support. Most concerning was the fact that they were followed by a figure in dark clothing who stayed just at the edge of the camera's range, making identification impossible. The last confirmed sighting of Jake and Michelle Thompson was captured by the valet parking security camera at 3:21 a.m. The footage showed them getting into a black SUV with tinted windows, but the license plate was obscured by mud or deliberately covered. The vehicle had been waiting for them, suggesting that their departure had been planned or coordinated in advance. The SUV pulled away from the hotel and disappeared into the pre-dawn Las Vegas traffic, heading north on the Strip toward downtown. Hotel staff immediately began trying to piece together what had happened. The valet who had been working that night, Robert Kim, remembered the black SUV because the driver had given him a large tip to keep the vehicle in a premium parking spot near the entrance. However, the driver had worn a baseball cap and sunglasses despite the late hour, making identification impossible. The vehicle had Nevada license plates, but the numbers were too blurry on the security footage to provide any useful information. The investigation officially began when Jake's brother, David Thompson, called the hotel on Saturday afternoon. David lived in Las Vegas and had planned to meet Jake and Michelle for lunch, but when they failed to show up and didn't answer their phones, he became concerned. When hotel security explained that the couple had left their room in the early morning hours without taking their belongings, David immediately contacted the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. Detective Maria Santos was assigned to the case and immediately recognized the unusual circumstances surrounding the couple's disappearance. The fact that they had left behind all their personal belongings, including identification and credit cards, suggested either foul play or an emergency situation that had required them to leave immediately. The security footage showing them apparently following someone out of the hotel at 3:17 a.m. was particularly concerning, as it suggested they had not left voluntarily. The investigation expanded quickly as detectives realized they were dealing with a case that had no obvious explanation. Jake and Michelle had no known enemies, no financial problems, and no history of erratic behavior. Their families described them as a stable, loving couple who would never disappear without explanation. The fact that they had left behind thousands of dollars worth of belongings, including Michelle's new jewelry and Jake's expensive laptop, ruled out the possibility that they had simply decided to extend their vacation elsewhere. Detective Santos worked with hotel security to analyze hours of footage from cameras throughout the property. The investigation revealed that Jake and Michelle had returned to their room after the Cirque du Soleil show and had remained there until their mysterious departure at 3:17 a.m. There was no record of anyone visiting their room, no evidence of phone calls or text messages that might have prompted their sudden departure, and no indication that they had been in contact with anyone outside the hotel. The breakthrough came when investigators discovered that the black SUV had been captured on traffic cameras at several locations throughout Las Vegas. The vehicle was tracked heading north on the Strip, then east on Sahara Avenue, before disappearing into a residential area where camera coverage was limited. The pattern suggested that whoever was driving knew the city well and was deliberately avoiding main roads where they might be easily tracked. Local police expanded their investigation to include missing person reports from other hotels and tourist destinations throughout Nevada. They discovered a troubling pattern of couples who had disappeared under similar circumstances over the past 2 years. Each case, the missing people had been tourists staying at high-end hotels, had left their belongings behind, and had last been seen getting into dark vehicles with tinted windows. The similarities were too striking to be coincidental. The FBI joined the investigation when it became clear that the disappearances might be connected to an organized crime operation targeting wealthy tourists. Special Agent Jennifer Walsh, who specialized in human trafficking cases, brought federal resources to bear on the investigation. The Bureau's theory was that Jake and Michelle had been targeted because they fit the profile of wealthy tourists who might be valuable for ransom or other criminal purposes. The case took a dramatic turn when investigators received a tip from a hotel employee who had initially been afraid to come forward. Housekeeping supervisor Linda Martinez revealed that she had seen Jake and Michelle talking to a well-dressed man in the hotel lobby on Friday evening, just before they went to the Cirque du Soleil show. The man had appeared to be giving them directions or recommendations, and Michelle had been taking notes on a hotel notepad. Linda had thought nothing of it at the time, assuming he was a concierge or hotel employee helping guests. Linda's description of the man matched a suspect who had been connected to several other tourist disappearances in the Las Vegas area. The suspect, identified as Markus Volkov, was a 45-year-old Russian immigrant who had been living in Las Vegas for 5 years. He had no official employment but lived in an expensive condominium and drove luxury vehicles, suggesting involvement in illegal activities. Most concerning was his history of arrests for fraud and his suspected connections to human trafficking operations. The investigation into Markus Volkov revealed a sophisticated operation that targeted wealthy tourists visiting Las Vegas. Volkov and his associates would identify potential victims by monitoring hotel guest lists, credit card transactions, and social media posts. They would then approach their targets while they were enjoying their vacation, gaining their trust by offering insider information about shows, restaurants, or gambling opportunities. The operation's method was insidious in its simplicity. Volkov would present himself as a hotel insider or local expert who could provide special access to exclusive experiences. He would arrange to meet his victims late at night, claiming that the timing was necessary for discretion or to avoid crowds. Once he had them isolated, he would force them into waiting vehicles and transport them to secure locations where they would be held for ransom or sold to human trafficking networks. The search for Jake and Michelle intensified as investigators realized they were racing against time. Human trafficking victims who disappeared in Las Vegas were often transported out of the state within 48 hours, making recovery exponentially more difficult. The FBI coordinated with law enforcement agencies across the Southwest, alerting them to be on the lookout for the missing couple and any vehicles matching the description of the black SUV. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A truck driver named Billy Patterson contacted police after seeing news coverage of the missing couple. Billy had been driving through a remote area of Nevada early Saturday morning when he'd seen a black SUV parked at an abandoned gas station about 100 miles northeast of Las Vegas. He'd noticed the vehicle because it seemed out of place in such a desolate location, and he'd seen what appeared to be several people moving around behind the building. Billy's tip led investigators to the abandoned gas station, where they found evidence that confirmed their worst fears. Tire tracks in the dirt matched the pattern from the black SUV's tires, and investigators found personal items that belonged to Jake and Michelle. Most significantly, they discovered Michelle's silk scarf that she had purchased during their shopping trip, caught on a piece of broken glass behind the building. The scarf had been torn, suggesting a struggle had taken place. The investigation of the abandoned gas station revealed that it had been used as a transfer point for human trafficking operations. Hidden cameras installed by the traffickers had captured footage of vehicles arriving and departing, but the recordings had been partially destroyed in an apparent attempt to cover up the operation. Forensic specialists were able to recover some of the footage, which showed Jake and Michelle being transferred from the black SUV to a larger truck at approximately 5:30 a.m. on Saturday morning. The truck seen in the recovered footage was traced to a transportation company that had been under investigation for suspected involvement in human trafficking. The company, Desert Transport Services, operated a fleet of trucks that traveled throughout the Southwest, providing perfect cover for moving kidnapped victims across state lines. The FBI obtained search warrants for the company's facilities and discovered evidence linking them to at least a dozen disappearances over the past 3 years. The owner of Desert Transport Services, Viktor Petrov, was arrested along with 6 of his employees. Under interrogation, Petrov revealed the scope of the operation that had targeted Jake and Michelle. The trafficking network had been operating for years, kidnapping wealthy tourists and either holding them for ransom or selling them to buyers in Mexico and other countries. The operation was sophisticated, with lookouts in hotels, safe houses throughout the Southwest, and corrupt officials who helped cover up their crimes. The race to find Jake and Michelle alive led investigators to a compound in the Arizona desert where the trafficking network held their victims before transport. The compound was heavily fortified and surrounded by desert terrain that made escape virtually impossible. FBI tactical teams prepared for a rescue operation, knowing that the traffickers would likely kill their victims rather than allow them to be rescued alive. The rescue operation took place at dawn on Tuesday morning, exactly 5 days after Jake and Michelle had disappeared from their Las Vegas hotel. FBI agents stormed the compound and engaged in a fierce gun battle with the traffickers. During the chaos, agents found Jake and Michelle locked in a shipping container behind the main building. Both were alive but had been severely traumatized by their ordeal. Jake had been beaten and threatened with death if he didn't cooperate with his captor's demands. He had tried to protect Michelle and had taken the brunt of the physical abuse, suffering broken ribs and a concussion. Michelle had been psychologically tortured, with her captors threatening to kill Jake if she didn't remain compliant. Both had been given minimal food and water, and their captors had repeatedly told them they would never see their families again. The rescue was successful, but Jake and Michelle's ordeal was far from over. They were immediately transported to a hospital in Phoenix, where they received medical treatment for their injuries and began the long process of psychological recovery. The trauma of their kidnapping would affect them for months to come, requiring extensive therapy and support from their families and friends. The investigation revealed that Jake and Michelle had been targeted because of their visible wealth and their apparent isolation from family and friends while on vacation. The traffickers had been monitoring their activities since their arrival in Las Vegas, taking note of their expensive purchases and their routine of dining at high-end restaurants. Marcus Volkov had approached them in the hotel lobby specifically because they fit the profile of victims who would be missed quickly, but who were temporarily separated from their support network. The prosecution of the trafficking network became a landmark case in the fight against human trafficking. Marcus Volkov was convicted on multiple charges including kidnapping, human trafficking, and conspiracy, receiving a sentence of life in prison without parole. Viktor Petrov and his associates also received lengthy sentences, and the Dismantling of their operation led to the rescue of several other victims who had been held at various locations throughout the Southwest. Jake and Michelle's recovery was a slow and difficult process. They struggled with post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, and depression following their ordeal. The couple moved away from Denver, seeking a fresh start in a location where they could begin to heal from their trauma. They also became advocates for other victims of human trafficking, working with organizations that provide support and resources for survivors. The case led to significant changes in how Las Vegas hotels monitor guest safety and security. Many properties implemented new protocols for tracking guest activities and identifying potential threats. The city also increased funding for anti-trafficking operations and established new partnerships with federal agencies to combat organized crime targeting tourists. Jake and Michelle's story serves as a stark reminder that human trafficking is not a crime that only affects vulnerable populations in foreign countries. It happens in American cities, targeting ordinary people who are simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. Their survival and recovery demonstrate the importance of never giving up hope, even in the most desperate circumstances. The investigation also revealed the sophisticated nature of modern human trafficking operations, which use technology and inside information to target victims and evade law enforcement. The case highlighted the need for increased awareness among travelers about the potential dangers they might face, even in popular tourist destinations like Las Vegas. Today, Jake and Michelle continue their recovery journey while working to help other survivors of human trafficking. Their foundation provides support and resources for families of missing persons, and they regularly speak at conferences and events about their experience. Their message is clear: human trafficking is a real and present danger that can affect anyone, anywhere, at any time. The courage Jake and Michelle showed during their captivity and their determination to rebuild their lives afterward has inspired countless others who have faced similar trauma. Their story demonstrates that with support, love, and determination, it is possible to survive even the most horrific experiences and find meaning and purpose in life again. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and the FBI continue to use the lessons learned from Jake and Michelle's case to improve their response to human trafficking situations. The techniques and strategies developed during their investigation have been shared with law enforcement agencies across the country, helping to save other victims and dismantle similar criminal operations. Jake and Michelle Thompson's disappearance in Las Vegas was a nightmare that no one should have to endure, but their survival and recovery offer hope to other families facing similar situations. Their story reminds us all to stay vigilant while traveling, to trust our instincts when something feels wrong, and to never underestimate the power of hope and determination in the face of overwhelming adversity. Note: this story is entirely fictional. Any resemblance to real people, places, or events is purely coincidental.